Welcome back to Gold Derby. I'm Christopher Rosen. I'm joined by Joyce Singh. And Joyce, just follow the Hollywood stars. We're going back to the 1989 Oscars.
This is our last one because we already did Driving Miss Daisy. So we're
This,
closing with a bang.
the season finale of Oscars Playback. Really, what a better way to end it than with one of the most infamous Oscars to ever Oscar, the
When
61st
did when did
annual.
you last watch Snow White and Rob Lowe before this?
Before this, not for a long time.
Same. I mean,
Uh,
I've obviously, consumed like interviews
yeah,
about it.
you
Um,
read. So you said
I
you
I
read in
do. I
his
read. I
books.
read more than you do.
Yeah,
Um, and Rob has talked about in his books, which
yeah.
I own, but I don't have them here right now. But yeah, I just kind of avoid the actual video of it.
So perhaps I'll tell you this. We'll talk about this. The 61st annual Oscars. Dennis spent a lot of time talking about this opening and Rob Lowe and Snow White. Probably not as much time on the ceremony itself with the winners, which mostly are fine. Though I enjoy Rain Man quite a bit. Uh, my take watching it now for the first time in years, which you can't watch like we were saying before we started recording on the official Oscars playlist because
It's not on the official Oscars playlist, but
they've
obviously it's on the internet.
they've taken it away. Trying to hide something that cannot be hidden.
You know, they should just put it up and just disable comments,
I
which they
wonder
do
if
on a lot
also
of other videos.
how much is it is because of the legal snafu of having Snow White without
They
it.
were sued.
They were sued by Disney for using Snow White. Here's what I'll say.
It's Disney that's like you can't put this up at all.
Here's what I'll say. Having watched this, not good. Certainly, I'm not here to defend Eileen Bowman, Rob Lowe, and Alan Carr's production of the 61st annual Oscars. That said, having watched many of these 80s Oscars in a row here for our lovely Oscars Playback limited series, Joyce, uh, not nearly as bad as some of these other ones, including last year's Oscars, which I thought was the worse than this even. The opening, I think all these openings have been pretty bad. This one is certainly long, but I don't think it's in keeping with the theme of these 80s Oscars, which are terrible. Like all of these are so bad. Remember they did which year is it? Platoon, A Room with a View when they're doing like chorus line or whatever. It was so fucking awful. And this one is bad, but I'm like, all these other ones are just as bad. So I feel like the PR on this one maybe outstripped its actual badness.
I think the issue is, I mean, that it wasn't just like a fun, cheesy number that is a parody of a song about the nominees,
Sure.
that we've seen over and over again that Billy does,
Yeah.
right? Because it was, using uh Snow White, you
Yes.
know, a well-known fictional character, Disney character, and put her up there, an actress, Eileen Bowman, and Rob Lowe up there singing a rendition of Proud Mary, which was heinous. And I think it was just
It's so bad.
like just a lot of elements conspiring. And I do think like Alan Carr and this whole ceremony became a scapegoat for that because like yes, like the previous openings are not great either, but like they were like within the purview of the Oscars, like and it wasn't like doing anything like totally out there the way that this was. Like this was so bad that Luminaries wrote a fucking letter to the Academy asking them to, review the opening, which they did. They formed a damn committee to review this opening because there was so much outrage over it. But I've always felt like it was just he just became a scapegoat and this whole ceremony became a scapegoat. And now like Rob especially can laugh about it. Like he talks about it all the time. And
It it
but
definitely
it's like,
yeah.
yeah, back then it was like imagine if that happened now with social media.
I think if that happened now with social media, it would have been interesting. I think you would have had so like in hindsight, Alan Carr was definitely scapegoated. There was a lot of like there's a 2010 LA Mag article about this that was like an oral history basically of this thing. And a lot of people suggested that it was also like homophobic, right? Or like the backlash against it. Now maybe that was also it's also terrible, right? So it's like hard to defend it as like the outrage against it was like anti-gay or anti-Alan Carr or homophobic. That said, I think that would have come quicker, and probably this would have still been killed online, but the backlash would have been faster, and it probably would have been embraced quicker by people who found it, the camp of it, like, worked. And
Yeah, and there were some people who liked it, like Jennifer Jones. Jennifer
yes,
Jones liked it.
yes. I think it would have definitely not like ended Alan Carr's career and then maybe life as it did in real life and here. But I don't think it would have ever been received well. Like, imagine, I mean, who is, so the Oscar, you mentioned that Oscars letter, Julie Andrews, Paul Newman, Gregory Peck, Billy Wilder, Sidney Lumet, calling it an embarrassment to both the Academy and the motion picture industry. It is neither fitting nor acceptable that the best work in motion pictures be acknowledged in such a demeaning fashion, the letter said. Who would write that letter now?
I feel like that letter might still happen, but everyone would just be dragged to the ends of the earth for writing it.
Yeah, anybody who signed it would be like marked as like a narc, basically.
It's like, go touch grass. Like, are you like fucking serious here? But like they did like that. They took this seriously. They formed a committee, and this, like, they treated this like the slap, which was actually like a serious thing.
They did. This was the pre-slap.
This is just a fucking opening number.
And the person who ran the committee, Joyce,
Gil Cates.
Gil Cates, who then later produced the next Oscars and hired Billy Crystal.
Because so they formed this committee and through their thorough research, I don't know what the hell they did, they determined that the issue was that the number was too long because it was 12 minutes.
Yes.
And that they need to start paying the producers because heretofore producers were not paid.
Yes.
So then they're like, great. The board was like, got it. We'll start paying producers. And guess who they made producer next year? Gil Cates. He got the first paycheck.
Interesting. Really makes you think. It's like that meme, the guy thinking meme. Yeah, so Alan Carr was hired, Joyce. The whole opening is like a inspired by Beach Blanket Babylon, Joyce.
Yeah, it's one of his faves.
A long-running musical review where Snow White is looking for Prince Charming. Here, Prince Charming is Rob Lowe doing, like you said, a terrible Proud Mary. Rob Lowe looks just absolutely lost immediately. Like, he can't wait to get off the stage. He knew right away it was a flop, it feels like.
Well, he did an interview in 2018, in December 2018, because it was coming up on the 2019 ceremony, which would have been 30 years. Mm-hmm. And that was also the first ceremony since this one without a host, because this one also did not have a host, as Tom Selleck kept reminding us.
So we'll talk about that. That was really rough.
So like in this interview in the Times, the first question, what were you thinking, Rob? The Academy asked me to do it. I was young and naive, and I thought, well, it's the Academy. They must know what's best. I was also a huge fan of Marvin Hamlisch, who wrote the number, so I figured he would be writing something great. At what point did you know the number was tanking? I remember vividly looking out in the audience and seeing Barry Levinson, who on that particular evening was the belle of the ball with Rayman, and I could see him very clearly pop-eyed and mouthing, what the expletive. But to be a successful actor, you have to have a big dollop of self-denial, so I managed to convince myself that I'd killed it.
Let me find this. Hang on, I gotta find this. Let me see. In this LA Mag article, speaking of Rob Lowe, I'll just read this whole section for you. Weary from his duet and the foreboding feeling that was building within him, Lowe wandered into the green room, where a club Oscar sign beamed overhead. In the corner, he saw an old woman in a dowdy red wig sitting alone. She motioned for him to take a seat behind her. It was Lucille Ball. Young man, she said, her voice gravelly, I had no idea you were such a good singer. Be a love and get me some aspirin. Lowe obeyed, and the two then spent the next hour holding hands as he attempted to assess the damage of his career. And then Lucille Ball died about 2 months later.
He died April 26th.
And the idea was maybe this killed her. A lot of people.
He mentions Lucille here too, and he said, that ended up being my all-time favorite memory because a lot of people didn't like it, but Lucy did. If it made Lucy happy, it made me happy because I love Lucy. Who doesn't?
Wow.
I know. And then they asked, why do you think people got so upset? I made a huge mistake. I had always thought the Oscars were a bit of fun escapism for America, where we celebrate and honor the craft of making movies. What I didn't realize was the grand solemnity and profound seriousness and the contribution to society at large that the evening represents to a lot of people. And that's on me. That's my bad. I don't think he's completely wrong here, because I think some people do take this way too seriously.
Well, I also thought it's like, I almost feel like like I said, watching it now with like fresh eyes, or just eyes having watched multiple Oscars from this era, and for this, I was like, I think it was like inevitable no matter what that this would have happened, just because there was so much, like we've seen it over these shows where it's like Pee Wee Herman and like Greg, you know what I mean? Like you're just, it's like a huge clash of cultures here in the 80s where you have these like legendary Hollywood, like old Hollywood figures still alive and showing up here, and then like rubbing elbows with Steve Guttenberg, or like, you know what I mean? It just feels like this was such a transitional time that there's no way that this would have not pissed off like the old guard, but there's really no way that the old guard could have remained, even like it needed to evolve. And this is probably the only way it would have happened anyway. This was definitely too long and obviously laughable. I actually think the Merv Griffin stuff with Lovely Bunch of Coconuts is even worse than Rob Lowe and Snow White. But I just think because Snow White and Rob Lowe is so like
It
iconic
was
that
also like
is
because they were first. So
right. But I'm like, I don't think this was like an inevitable thing. Like it would have happened no matter how bad it was, no matter what they did here. I think it would have been like this kind of like, what the fuck are we doing here? From the old guard.
yeah, like I think if they had just done like a normal number, I think it's also because they did Proud Mary.
Very
So if
strange.
it was just like an original song just about the nominees or whatever, everyone would still be like, this is cringe. But it was just too many poor decisions into it. And the whole thing was just, incredibly ostentatious and flamboyant and extravagant. So it was just like a lot coming at you. So it was, yeah, like it was easy to make this the scapegoat of like this is, what not to do and the worst production ever.
In
So
in this LA Mag article, I'll just read another section here. This is also the first Oscars to ever have Bruce Vilanch as a writer choice. So it's like a historic moment there because he was such a profound figure in the Oscars that we did already, right? The night Billy Oscars, all these things. Craig Zadan, who also produced an Oscars, right? Which one did he produce, Joyce? Do we
he's
remember?
produced like later
Yeah.
like, a lot. So
He says, I felt there was a surge of homophobia, but Alan Carr played into that. He never attempted to tone it down. He embraced all the extravagance. Everything was flamboyant, and he liked to shock people. That's about the opening number. And then in Bruce Vilanch says something else was behind that, the Schadenfreude, old-fashioned jealousy and ego. Alan Carr had said it was going to be the biggest and best Oscars for so long. Everyone who produced the show before or knew someone who had done it before took umbrage. David Geffen, though, said that sexual politics were irrelevant in determining the aftermath. People didn't hate it because Alan was gay. It was just a terrible show. So there you go.
like Alan did talk up the show a lot. There's a Times article, very long feature about just like his plan for it. Like he was like like if you asked him a question, he would tell you exactly what he had planned. And all the opening numbers, like because he was just inspired by musicals and all these films and production numbers that he liked from his childhood.
Right.
And his like approach for the show was 4 C's with the presenters,
Yes.
like the
Please.
pairings, compadres,
Yes.
co-stars, couples, and companions.
Yes.
So that's why we got all these pairings of people who are together or married, or reunions of co-stars and stuff. So it was very elaborate. He put a lot of thought to it, and he did talk it up a lot.
I,
So that's not like we do see they're very petty. I mean, human beings are petty people anyway, but like, throw money at people, make them rich and famous, they're even pettier. So
uh, this was just so beyond that. So there are things here like Alan Carr, like the red carpet was much more expanded, right? So that was like a big thing too.
but the red carpet was also boring.
Very boring. Then you do this massive 15-minute Snow White disaster number. And then you have Lily Tomlin come out and like make a joke about having a big entrance that flops immediately. And then they bring out Richard Kahn to talk about what a great show it's going to be. And then Tom Selleck comes out to be, I'm not a host. So the
He
first
says that
25
like
minutes,
17 times. I'm not
holy
your host.
shit. The first 25 minutes of this are just unwatchable. And yet still it ended up being like 15 minutes, 14 minutes shorter than the year before.
It's only 3 hours and 19 minutes. Well, another thing that Alan did was cut all the song performances, the song nominee performances.
And I think cut the Thalberg Award, right? Is that right? Did he cut,
Yeah.
or Herschel Humanitarian? One of them, I forget.
Yeah, like just get rid of the the honorary Oscars, which now we don't even have them anymore because
Right.
they just throw them on the
He
governor's awards in November.
he was a trendsetter there as well.
Also a trendsetter because he changed the reading from "and the winner is" to "and the Oscar goes to," and now it should be "my eyes see."
My eyes see the winner is. I love that. This is the first one, and the Oscar goes to. What else did he do that I was like, oh my god, this is so funny? Well, then even though it's 14 minutes short, they still have time for a 15-minute segment in the middle of the show for the Hollywood stars, the new Hollywood stars, Joyce.
Yeah. Again, imagine that happened now. They all sing "I want to win an Oscar" or whatever it's called.
Nobody on earth would do this now.
No one would agree to it.
Uh, well, I just want to do this now because we're talking about it. So he gets Bob Hope and Lucille Ball to do this, to intro this. Pretty cool. And then here are the stars, Joyce. All of whom are talking about, I want to win an Oscar. It's Stars of Tomorrow. You can watch this on YouTube.
I'm
right
sorry.
now.
It's called "I Want to Be an Oscar Winner."
All of these are on. This is actually on YouTube. This is a real thing that happened with
This
real.
is one they included in the playlist.
This they did not cut. Blair Underwood starts it off. He's still an actor and famous. Patrick Dempsey, McDreamy, maybe the best of the best here. This is the best we have in this segment. Ricky Lake, Joyce, Chad Lowe. So the Lowe brothers are just all over the shitty Oscars. Tracy Nelson, who I don't even know, to be honest. Keith Coogan, my favorite Don't Tell Mommy the Babysitter's Dead star. Corey Feldman. Corey Parker, never heard of him. No idea who that is. Christian Slater. Jolie Fisher. Savion Glover. Carrie Hamilton, total blank. Paige Hanna, total blank. Matt Lattanzi. Trisha Lee Fisher, nope. Patrick O'Neill. D.A. Pauly, nope. Tyrone Power Jr. and Holly Robinson, who I know. Some of these people I've literally never heard of. Didn't even recognize them.
What do you think Carrie Fisher thought of Trisha doing it?
I don't know. Carrie Fisher has one of the better segments with Martin Short here. So I think she knows what's funny. I think she probably thought it was cute.
Yeah, it's just like, I mean, we still have versions of obviously like the next like, wave of Hollywood stars, like Young Hollywood, the next A-list, like THR just did a whole list last month with it, right? But like no one would ever agree to do this now, ever. Like it would never even be pitched.
It would be shot down in the room. I can't believe it happened. And I'm also like, Joyce, were all these people like, who here is famous enough to even do this? Even at the
that's
time,
the whole point, because it's like supposed to be the next gen. Like they will, these are future Oscar winners here, and that's what they're singing about. And who among these have won an Oscar since then?
I'm gonna say none based on this list, Joyce. Anybody won anything? Maybe like as a producer or a short film winner? I don't think so.
I mean, this is not even like being shady, but I just feel like you're just kind of like setting yourself up if you do something like this. It's like obviously not everyone is going to win an Oscar, but it's just like now, the internet is forever, and this is out there on the internet.
It's a tough beat. I don't know, really bad. So that's not the Oscar star choice. But before we'll get back into the show, but I feel like we should go through.
We have to do 1988 in film.
Yes. Do you have the box office, Joyce? We start there.
The box office for 1998 in film. Number one film. Rain Man.
What a time.
Best Picture winner.
What a time to be alive. The biggest movie in the world, Rain Man.
Yeah, Rain Man.
That would be like Hitman being a number one movie at the box office for the year.
But totally not the same, except for having man in the title.
That type of film, though, that's what I mean. Like it's just like a regular movie for grown-ups.
No, but like Rain Man is an issue movie, which Hitman is.
Sure.
Not. Like Rain Man taught people about autism. That's the whole.
That's
thing.
true.
That's why it did so well.
Okay.
What is Hitman teaching people? Nothing. How to use your notes app. So, number two, one of my all-time faves when I was a child, Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
I want to talk about this. Do we want to go through the thing, or we could? Well, I guess let's go through the list and then we'll come back to Who Framed
Number
Roger Rabbit.
3, Coming to America.
Okay.
4, Crocodile Dundee 2. Number 5, another one of my faves, Twins. 6, Rambo 3. 7, A Fish Called Wanda. 8, Cocktail. 9, Big. And 10, Die Hard.
Pretty impressive list of movies there.
Great list here, and I have rewatched like 5 of these, 6 probably. Like this is a very rewatchable list for me.
I mean, Die Hard to me is like one of the great movies ever made. Big obviously is a classic. I want to ask about Who Framed Roger Rabbit. My pet theory is this, based on you and we have a mutual friend who lives in this town with me, and I was talking to him about it this weekend, or a mutual acquaintance or whatever, someone we both know. And I was like, oh, I rewatched Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and I was like, it's fine. I saw it in the theater. I remember liking it. I'm a little older than you, right? Like, I'm not significantly older, but like whatever. And I was like, I don't know if I don't love it. It's fine. Like I liked it as a kid, I guess, and it's like has no real interest. It was like totally fine watching it now. But he was like, oh, I loved it so much as a kid, which is what you just said. And I feel like that you're like, is this what are you like an elder millennial? Like that
Yes,
era?
I'm an elder millennial.
Is
I'm
that what
an
it is?
old millennial.
So that I feel like is what people love. Like that group like loves this movie incredibly much.
Yeah, so I mean, I was 3 when this came out, and I obviously did not see it in the theater. So
Right.
I probably saw this like when I was like 5 or something. Like we owned this movie, so this wasn't one that we taped off of TV on VHS with
Okay.
commercials or something, or even on like HBO. But I think I think I was just like, I remember being just really amazed by the live action animation hybrid. And I think it's because I also really loved Mary Poppins when I was a kid. So I
Okay.
think it was that.
Sure.
Like I was just so impressed by
Interesting.
like that mix. But I used to rewatch it Roger Rabbit like so much. And now I can't even tell you what the plot is. Like I
So
just know, like, I mean, obviously Roger Rabbit is framed, and I know that, and Bob Hoskins has to exonerate him. And then I know the end. I remember the end. He goes into Toontown, but I
yes.
can't tell you anything in
This
the
is so
middle
funny. So I
because
just
I haven't
rewatched
watched
it.
this in probably 30 years, but
Yeah,
I watched this so much when
that's
I was a
funny.
kid.
Okay. So it's on Disney Plus now. You can watch it if you really care to. Uh and it still looks amazing. Like all the stuff that you were saying there, I think still work. Like the animation is amazing, and
Mhm.
the hybrid live action stuff looks better than most big box office
Stuff now.
movies now. Absolutely, like without a doubt, it looks fantastic. And I just found it like kind of fine. I think like a lot of like I found like the back half when he goes to Toontown, that part is great. The first half is a lot of like, wow, look at us, we're doing this hybrid thing, and it's a little silly. And I feel like that would be great for a kid, but as a grown up, I was just like, it's fine. I was like, I'm fine with this.
I don't think I've ever seen this as an adult. Like I
No, I
think I
think it's
just
definitely for
consumed
kids.
this when I was a kid, and then at some point I just left it behind.
I wonder how kids like I didn't watch it with my daughter, but I was like, I wonder how kids would like, was part of it too that you're watching all of these classic animation characters that you know in it? Like, you know what I mean? Like, was that a draw?
No, I
I
don't
don't
think
know.
like I was never I think it was really just the hybrid aspect of me.
Right.
I mean, like I obviously watched like Looney Tunes and stuff
Right.
when I was a kid, but it wasn't like I was obsessed with like Bugs Bunny or
Right.
something or or like Goofy or something. But um yeah, I don't know. It's like I think I would still probably enjoy it now.
Yeah, you definitely
Um
would. I mean, it's good. It just wasn't like it's got a lot of 5 stars on Letterboxd Choice, and I'm just like, not for me, but it's good. It's definitely a good movie, and it looks great. Coming to America, were you big into that one?
I mean, I've seen it, like not really. I rewatched it a couple years ago after the sequel.
Yeah, the sequel
Yeah, so
sucks.
that was the last time I saw it. So
Uh, my Eddie is always Trading Places, which I think we've talked about, and then also Beverly Hills Cop. I always liked more Cop 2. This one's fun though. It's very totally fine. I think it's good, but I haven't watched it a lot in a long time. Twins, you were saying you love, Joyce? I love Twins at the
love
time.
Twins. This was like, I mean, I remember when Junior came out in '94. I'm like, yes, a Twins reunion.
Uh, they
Just a
still
great
toy with
duo.
doing triplets.
I mean, they should have,
They should have
So
done it.
and I was like, when they came out this year at the Oscars, I
Really
was like,
good.
Twins.
Really good. Uh, Crocodile Dundee 2, not interested. But also this was when Crocodile Dundee was still a phenomenon. Not as much as the
Yeah,
first
I'm
one.
not. I don't even know if I've seen this one. I
Rambo
probably have.
3, Rambo 3 is when it goes full Reagan and he's just like refighting the Vietnam War. We went from thoughtful drama about PTSD and the veteran experience after Vietnam to Sylvester Stallone greased up with Crisco, just refighting the Vietnam War and winning.
Um, yeah.
I haven't seen.
I
I've
haven't
not seen
like
this one
I'm
in a
not
long
like
time.
there's like these franchises where I just don't finish the
I,
franchise.
I gotta say, I've never seen any of the recent ones. I stopped at 3, never went back, and I really only have seen one more than like once. I was never a big Rambo guy.
Yeah, me either. And yeah, most of these I've just seen the first one and then like maybe the second.
I do think Rambo is very good though, the original. Here's a movie that has no cultural footprint at all anymore, but was like a huge thing. Fish Called Wanda.
I haven't seen this in a really long time, but I thought it was fine. And I
It,
think a nice win for Kevin Kline.
uh, I never got Monty Python-esque humor. That was always not for me, and that's what this feels like.
Um, yeah, I mean, I'm not a big Monty Python person either, but this I don't know. I've never wanted to revisit it. So,
No, I
and I really just watched it because I knew he won an Oscar for
yeah, I
it.
found a compilation. I didn't watch it before this, but I've seen it before, and I watched a compilation on YouTube of his greatest hits, and I was like, sure, it's a totally like fine performance. I don't think it's like
It's good. I mean, I like his win. It was also a surprise win. And it's also great because it's one of the few actual comedic performances to win. So
Cocktail is trash but enjoyable. Great year for Tom Cruise. Every one of
I
these years is a great year
like
for Tom Cruise.
I don't watch that often, Cocktail.
Big, a classic,
Love Big and a great Tom Hanks performance.
fantastic.
And like I could argue that he should have won. So
Oh, let's do that when we get there. I'd love to do that. And Die Hard, which is just a fabulous movie. I mean, you cannot go wrong with this movie. It's one of the greats.
yeah, this is another franchise where, I just don't continue it now.
I
It's
gotta
like,
say, uh, you're missing out because Die Hard 2 is fantastic,
well, I've seen Die Hard 2.
And Die Hard 3 is the best. This is the
I've
first
seen
three
Die Hard
movies.
3. I think I've seen, yeah,
The
that's probably
first
like when I've
Yeah.
stopped.
The first 3 movies are 3 fantastic, all in different ways, all still excellent, all great. Didn't lose a step as you get to the third one, and then the others we don't talk about because they're awful.
Yeah, like, like this is how I'm with Scream. Like I saw the
Yeah.
first 3. And like now I don't touch it.
The
So
difference though, Joyce, is the new Screams before they got annihilated were great. Is it great, but the new diehards are terrible.
I mean, I don't care. I don't care about the quality. I'm just like, it's been too long and I'm just out on this, you know?
Sure. I understand. Uh Other movies this year, let's see what I wrote down. Some ones that I really liked. Um Beetlejuice, Joyce.
Love Beetlejuice. This is a great year for my guy, Michael Keaton. He also has Clean and Sober.
Yep. New one coming out soon. When
Beetlejuice,
you're
Beetlejuice.
watching this.
Yeah.
Beetlejuice coming out very soon. We might have seen it by the time this is up.
No.
Maybe. I don't get invited to Warner Brothers stuff that much. But yeah, great movie. I love the part in the beginning when the old man is like hair right down to his goddamn shoulders. And he says, just trim it. Love that part. Still talking as they're like riding away.
Um, yeah, I'm not like I can't say that I'm like super excited about the sequel
Oh
because
no.
I'm also just like we don't need to revisit anything. Just let
No.
things be. Like we don't need sequels and prequels and spin-offs,
Oh,
but it's just IP mining now. And
I
I'm like I will see it obviously, but I'm not excited about it.
agreed. Beetlejuice, we mentioned, I think I mentioned last week we were talking about Spaceballs. Even in the future, things don't work. Get a lot of rewind on when I was a kid because I loved hearing such a dirty word. Uh, Nice fucking model, Hong Kong. I still say that shit. That is like a
Of course.
really in my like way in my rotation of like just repeated memes, verbal memes. Nice fucking model, honk honk, whenever something goes wrong or breaks. Great.
And
Michael Keaton.
how many people get it?
And my friend group, all of them, because we're old. But I don't know how many other people get it.
You need to say it to strangers.
Michael Keaton should have won an Oscar maybe for this. How about that?
He should have been nominated for both this and Clean and Sober. He could have gone supporting for this for Beetlejuice.
I think he could have been supporting for Beetlejuice and won over Kevin Kline. Would have been great.
And then now we don't have to worry about getting him an Oscar anymore.
I know. Other ones I wrote down. Casual Sex ? I just remember the VHS box. It was I think it's Leah Thompson and Victoria Jackson are the stars. I wrote down, I've never seen this, but I wrote it down. Return of the Killer Tomatoes, because it's a George Clooney movie, Joyce.
I've never seen that.
How about the movie Willow?
I've never seen that either.
I saw this at the Port Washington Theater that is now closed. Not Cineplex Odeon, the other one that was uptown.
I remember when they announced the Disney Plus series and people were losing their minds, and I'm like, cannot relate.
No, I've seen it once. Not great. Big, we talked about. Here's a movie I always wish was funnier, Funny Farm with Chevy Chase.
I have not seen that one, so
not great. Here's a classic I did not watch as a kid. Thought about a lot this year because of Challengers, Bull Durham.
Really enjoyed Bull Durham. And you know, it did really well in screenplay categories in the lead up and then loses.
Very funny. Probably could have done better, I think, overall for the Oscars.
Well, it was like the whole thing of them just like leaving the film behind, right? Like not putting the effort to campaign it. And I mean, yeah, there's a lot of great comedic performances this year that should have been nominated.
Yes.
And they're in this movie.
Yep.
So
we mentioned Roger Rabbit. How about this one, License to Drive? I feel like you were on that one. I would hope.
I've seen it. It's not a fave, but I've seen it.
Wow, I love that one. The Coreys, Heather Graham in an early role, Richard Mauser as the dad, and Carol Kane as the mom. Fantastic. Love it driving. I was like, this is how you learn how to drive. It wasn't.
Was that how you learned how to drive?
No. Die Hard we talked about. Here's probably my favorite movie of the whole year. Definitely in the top 3. Midnight Run, Joyce.
I haven't seen this in a really long time, but I did like it when I saw it ages ago.
I think it's like, not even kidding. I think this is maybe the best De Niro performance ever. I think he is fantastic in this movie. Charles Grodin is so great. He's never had as good of a screen partner in any kind of his stupid comedies, but even maybe in drama, they're so good together. Great Martin Brest movie. It is so great. Absolutely love it. And I would have loved.
Martin Brest gets like no shine. Like he has Beverly Hills Cop. And then, you know, his last one was Geely, which that's it. Not gone. Great. But he has like these two.
Back into
but how many people even know that he directed Geely? It's like everyone just knows Geely as Ben and J-Lo, you know.
Hollywood must know because they blacklisted him like Alan Carr after Snow White. Which was worse, Geely or Snow White? Unanswerable question, maybe.
I mean, it like 2 different mediums. Hard to compare.
Here's another one I watched a lot that I would say is terrible. Caddyshack 2.
I've never seen that one.
Check it out. Great.
Do I need to though?
No.
I don't think so.
Never saw this until as an adult. Last Temptation of Christ.
Marty with the sole director nom.
Gets the David Lynch treatment here for this, basically.
Yeah. You know, controversial.
Very controversial at the time. I think nowadays would be considered less controversial.
Yes.
It's not my favorite movie, though. I'm just gonna say it's a lot. It's a big swing.
Not one of mine either.
It's a big swing, and there's stuff in it that I think works, and some stuff that doesn't. How about the movie Young Guns?
Love Young Guns.
Holy shit, that's a banger.
You know I love Young Guns.
It's so good. Oh my god. Made me want to watch. Just reading it, I was reading the Wikipedia page. I was like, man, I gotta watch Young Guns again. That was great.
I mean, do you know how many like Emilio Estevez movies I watched after The Mighty Ducks?
Is he your favorite actor?
No, I don't have favorite actors.
What about as a kid?
I get asked this all the time, but I don't have favorite actors. But no, I think it was more that like I mean, obviously like Mighty Ducks like movies are my fave. So it was just like I want to see what else he's done, which I think
Right.
is like normal. Like if you
Yeah.
discover an actor, so you try to consume his resume. So just I watched a lot of Emilio in the early 90s.
Pretty great. Uh, this one I never saw, frankly, ever, but I know people like it. Crossing Delancey. I feel like this was on a lot. It,
I've never seen that either, but yes, I do remember seeing it on TV.
it's definitely had like a renewed interest as people are like, we have to find other female filmmakers that we overlooked in the 80s and like reignite their interest in their careers. So
Yeah, and Amy Irving got a Globe nom
yeah.
for it. So
What else did I write down? Mystic Pizza, Julia.
I mean, yeah, I think it's fine. I don't
Sure.
not one of my faves.
Here's one I watched a lot. An HBO special that I was like, I don't think you've probably ever seen this. Feds with Mary Gross and Rebecca De Mornay.
No.
It's so good. I haven't seen it since I was probably 11 or 12 years old, so I can't vouch for it being good, but man, it was great at the time. They're women who go into the FBI, Joyce. They're feds.
Yeah, I got that from the title.
Is
Thanks.
they'd be ACAP now probably, but at the time it was progressive to be like, oh, look at this, they're great. They Live, Roddy Piper movie. Sure.
Sure.
Child's Play, Chucky, the doll, right? Chucky.
I'm not like into any of that.
Same.
So yeah.
The Land Before Time.
Love The Land Before
There we
Time. I
go.
saw this in school. Of course. You could just like tell which movies
I had it written down.
saw
I
in
knew it.
school.
I was like, "This is gonna know this one."
Like anything like animated we saw in indoor day at school.
And then I got two more. One I still watch to this day every Christmas, and it's one of my favorites. Scrooged.
You do love
Oh my
Scrooge.
god, I love it so much. It is the best. Bill Murray unjustly snubbed. I think he should have gotten a Best Actor nomination. I think he's so good in it. It's so funny. Great movie. Naked Gun was another one. I haven't seen this since I was probably like a teenager, but really loved it at the time.
Yeah, that's another one. It's just like out on the franchise after.
Immediately out, basically.
Yeah.
Oh, 2.5 is good because you get I've been swimming in raw sewage. I love it. I still say that a lot too.
Um,
What else did you got? And that's all I wrote down.
Three Men and a Baby, or as they introduced Tom Selleck on the carpet, One Man, No Baby, Tom Selleck.
Right.
Um, very much enjoy that. Stand and Deliver, which I also saw in school, but not like on indoor day, but like in an actual classroom.
Sure. That was a good one. Yeah. Oscar nominee, Edward James Olmos.
Yeah, a surprise nominee.
I think if you ask people right now if Edward James Olmos was an Oscar nominee, they would say no. I don't think people remember this at all.
Do you think it's still being shown in schools?
Absolutely not.
What do they do in school now?
Today, when we dropped off my daughter at school, because we're recording this months ago, they were like, oh, it's going to be movie day. And I'm like, I can't wait to find out
What are
what
they
movie day
watching?
means. I have no idea. Paw Patrol?
Oh my gosh. So I've never seen this movie and I do not want to, but you know, it has its place in pop culture lore. Mac and Me,
Oh,
because
I've never seen it either, but
of
I know
course
the
no one should
lore.
ever see this movie. We should
I
just
know the
watch
lore.
Paul Rudd
Yes.
bring the same clip to Conan every single time. He has
Yes,
to
of
plug
course.
something. That's the only part I've seen and the only part I want to see. Married to the Mob, another great like comedic
Mhm.
Michelle Pfeiffer performance that, you know, should have been nominated. I mean, she's
Yeah,
nominated for Dangerous Liaisons instead.
another great Jonathan Demme movie, like in this era, where it's
Mhm.
like he's being overlooked, but then he'll have Silence of the Lambs in a couple of years, so that's fine.
Running on Empty, R.I.P. River.
Yes, great, and written by Jake Gyllenhaal and Maggie Gyllenhaal's mom,
Yeah,
Naomi.
Naomi Foner.
Yes.
And Stealing Home, a
Ooh.
great Jodie Foster performance, another baseball movie. We got a lot of baseball
Big
movies.
baseball movie here because I didn't even mention Eight Men Out was another one I wrote
Yeah,
down. Right, that's a
yeah.
good one.
But yeah, is Mark Harmon and Jodie, and
I think
Jodie's
so.
really good in it, but you
Yep.
know, she had all her heat for The Accused.
Yes.
What else is there? Johnny Be Good. I've seen that
Mm-hmm.
one.
Sure.
And then The Unbearable Lightness of Being, which I didn't see until years later.
Yes.
And Action Jackson.
Great. Action Jackson's another movie that I think has been like re-embraced by the film Twitter cognoscenti. But great video box, great
Mhm.
VHS box, vividly remember it. R.I.P. Carl Weathers.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought about that when he died, obviously. So, and then Bird, which I saw years
Hmm.
later too, Clint's player. He
Yes,
won the Globe for director,
sure.
snubbed by the Oscars. So,
Uh,
but
one more I wrote down. I forgot. Vice versa, which I think we talked about last week when we mentioned
you did.
like father, like son. Vice
Yes.
versa is Judge Reinhold and Fred Savage, I believe.
Um, yeah. So that's
So good year, you'd say? Some classics here for sure.
there are definitely more films I like in this year or that I've rewatched more than in past
Eh,
years.
One other one I didn't mention, Beaches. I feel like a lot of
Oh,
people love
yes.
that weeby, a good weeby.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, there's some really good movies here. I think I didn't really go back and like think about the decade itself. I feel like I liked a couple, like what I think like 87 I was super into. There's like some of these later years are great. This is a good year. I think there is a lot of solid movies here. It's hard to go wrong with like Big and Die Hard and like Beetlejuice in the same year. Like
Yeah.
that's like kind of crazy rewatchability. And like we said, these are franchises. I'm sure there's some idiot is trying to figure out how to make Big redo Big bigger.
Bigger, biggest.
That's a whole. We got a trilogy right there.
Yeah. I mean, my friend and I always joke about we have Tom Holland, Tom Hollander, we need Tom Hollandest.
Right.
So
Tom Hanks is like the. What if Tom Hanks is then old and then age? Does he switch bodies with an old person or a young person or both? It's like Freaky Friday.
what if you do three? It's like a
That
three-way swap.
Yeah. So you'd have a
Like
young
in the
Tom Hanks,
Marvels.
right? So who would be the young Tom Hanks now?
They should do an unknown.
You just want an unknown. And
Yeah.
then who's an old Tom Hanks? Tom Hanks is old. So who's the middle Tom Hanks?
That they can do a name. Who looks
So
like him?
I don't know. It used to be like Shia LaBeouf, but obviously not anymore. Uh, I'm trying to think who could be like a young Tom Hanks. Nobody really looks like him.
No, because he's Tom Hanks. He's unique. So
That's what we need to do though. If you're a hack screenwriter watching this, help us think of biggest with the
I mean, I'm
three
sure
triplet.
that's been turned around for like 7 years
Yeah.
already. So it's on the
Uh,
blacklist.
so that's the year in film. So the Oscars. First of all, I was wondering, is this a cursed Oscars already because it's taking place on a Wednesday?
Yeah, it's on Wednesday, March
Oh my
29th,
God.
1989.
And I was like, not even like we started this mini series of Oscars playback with the Oscars being delayed because Ronald Reagan was attempted assassination. It delayed into Tuesday. This one's just on a fucking Wednesday. They're just like, who
Just
cares?
just a random Wednesday, not even a Monday, which was normal.
Was this a strike reason or why did this get delayed? I have no idea. I could not find this. Like it just
No,
is a
I
Wednesday.
think I feel like they just chose it
Oh
and
my
then like
God.
no one had an issue with it, whereas they would now
Oh
if
my
any
God.
award show were scheduled on a Wednesday
If
now.
it's on a Wednesday, that's like you just gave up. Alan Carr really trying to gild the lily here. Fuck it, we're gonna do it on a Wednesday. Get Snow White in here. We're doing it
I mean,
Wednesday.
he's not the one picking the date. It's just like
Oh my
they just
God.
picked this date.
And
So, but you know what? The ratings, man, people tuned in.
42.6 million people watch this. It was a huge It's the highest rated Oscars until the Titanic year, Joyce.
Exactly. He
So it's
he
absolute
did his
fucking
job, okay? Alan Carr did his job.
he brought and the Oscar goes to got highest ratings for like basically a decade and made a show we're still talking about to this day and was blacklisted for his
Yeah.
efforts.
For better or worse, we're still talking. Or so here I'll read the last question to Rob Lowe in this interview.
Yes.
Do you feel like you've gotten the last laugh? I do. 80% of America can't tell you what won Best Picture in any given year. So in an era when staying in the conversation is as important as anything else, I for sure have gotten more money and acclaim out of being in that Oscar opening number than if I had won an Oscar, and that's fitting.
Wow.
I
I
mean,
mean,
it's true. Like
hard to argue.
normies have no idea. I mean, I think this year they would know Oppenheimer won, but if you ask them like the last 2 years, 3 years, they'll be like, oh.
Would you get 3 years? Would you get Nomadland? I honestly don't think so. We did a
No, because like
trivia.
normies, like none of my normies friends have seen No Man Land or Coda.
we did a trivia a couple months ago, and it was the opening thing was like what won Best Picture in 20 what was the 2020 Best Picture? It was Nomadland was the answer, and no, not a single person. I think it was like they did.
So
It
you were
was
the only one who got it right?
in our group. Every group got it right, it seemed, but I was like nobody in my group of 10 really knew. So it was like match the it was like a 4. So it was like Oppenheimer, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Coda, blank. And you had to guess what the blank was. And I was like, Nomadland, obviously. And they were like, what is that? I was like, nobody knows this movie exists. I don't even not regular people don't even know
No,
about
like
this shit.
regular people, that's why you know, if like normies talk to me, like my friends or even like their friends, like talk to me about a film that is not like a mainstream hit, like I have to log that and flag that and put it in the back of my mind, which is what happened with Parasite. Because like one of my friends just started talking to me about Parasite
Mhm.
randomly in like October in 2019. I'm like, oh, like because like he wanted to see it. I'm like, there's interest in this
Yes.
movie by a regular person.
Hmm.
It's not like just film Twitter.
Pretty crazy. Uh, so Rain Man wins Best Picture, Joyce. We'll just go through the winners and the nominations. But the nominees, Rain Man had 8 nominations, 4 wins. Dangerous Liaison, 7 nominations, 3 wins. Haven't even mentioned that yet. Roger Rabbit, 7 nominations, 3 wins. Mississippi Burning, another one, did not mention. 7 nominations, 1 win. Working Girl, did not mention. 6 nominations, 1 win. Gorillas in the Mist, 5 nominations. The Accidental Tourist, 4 nominations and a win. And Die Hard, 4 nominations and 1 win.
uh yeah. So Rain Man was a huge hit, like we said. It opened in December.
Yes.
And yeah, this was basically like the first time the general public had heard of autism.
Yes. And I think nowadays, I was wondering this. I don't think people really think about this movie as much anymore. Like you said, I don't think it has like a big footprint.
And if they do, they'll like it'll be labeled as problematic.
So this is what I was wondering. I think it would be labeled as problematic. It's a great movie. I rewatched it. I was like, man, it's so entertaining. It's like a classic
It's very
80s,
entertaining.
classic 8 like a TNT special, right? Like you watch this on
And it's like
TNT.
it's pretty short. It's like
Yeah. It's like 2 hours, fucking great, flies by. Everyone's awesome in it. But I was going to say I think it would definitely be labeled like we know it would be labeled problematic now. But I was like it's I guess it gets to like I think there are limits to this, but I was like, it doesn't often end the movie. Took really great, they went to great lengths to do this respectfully, and it's actually does show this in a really careful light. And I think it's like not, it's like a good, it is, they did, even for then, I feel like they spent a lot of time thinking about it and making sure it was done right. And whether Dustin Hoffman should have played the role, I guess now you'd say like we would find a neurodivergent actor to play that role. But like, I don't think the way it was handled was problematic. So I don't know if it actually should be labeled problematic. I just
no,
think
I don't think the movie itself or the performance or anything about it is um actually has aged super poorly.
no, it hasn't.
And I think, yeah, I agree. I think it is done respectfully, and I think it is a good performance by him, but I think it would just be labeled problematic merely because he's an abled actor playing someone neurodivergent. And then this win essentially or it's credited as like ushering in the age of actors playing disabled people and going to those lengths, you know, in Oscar baity movies just to win an Oscar. And then, you know, eventually we got Tropic Thunder.
Which gets the Tropic Thunder, right? But we
Yeah.
have this, and we have My Left Foot next year with Daniel Day-Lewis, and
Yeah.
then Tom Hanks later with Forrest Gump, all of
Yeah.
the same ilk. Uh, I like, yeah, I definitely think it would be labeled as a problem, but I do think it was handled well. I don't know. I don't. I was like, I don't think it like. And the other thing I guess I was wondering is like, and this is like, I guess the debate in general you would say about this, like when this kind of stuff happens now, this was like we said, like for a lot of like autism is not something that is new. But in 1988, 1989, this was the biggest movie in the entire world, and it like led to people understanding like this, like as like a thing that is that affects people and like it shows like it's used to create empathy for a person
Yeah,
who
and
is
like
not
that's
there. So maybe it's
ideally
good that it exists, right?
yeah,
Like I
like
don't
that's
know.
ideally what art should
Right.
do if you make art that is expansive enough
Yeah.
with enough voices, and obviously not every piece of art is going to be perfect. Like I don't think it's a perfect movie
No.
obviously, but I think like it did its job for lack of a better word, right? Like it taught people or introduced people to autism, and that there was I think I read there was just a lot of like news pieces. Like there was like I think there was like a 60 Minutes piece on autism like during the run, like Oscar season that year.
Yeah.
So it's just opening people's eyes to what it is. And um so and like that just contributed to its box office success,
Right.
and I don't think this is I don't think you can even call it I don't think you can say like they went into it intentionally like making Oscar bait, because I don't think it was like that
No.
at all. I think in retrospect it might seem that way because now we're so used to this type of Oscar bait, right?
It kind of basically maybe created like that this Oscar bait because it
Yeah,
was
like you
like
play like characters with disabilities, right? Like
the last, I mean, think about like the recent run of Best Picture winners that we had. It's like Out of Africa, Last Emperor, like Platoon is different, I guess, but I'm like all of this is definitely like we've talked about. This is like a lot of these historical, like big historical epics, or like this is definitely like the apple in a bag of oranges kind of this decade. It feels like, and has now become like the typical Oscar bait movie. But at the time, it felt like not that at all. It's like actually like not the some modern like maybe one of the well I guess terms of endearment is modern day, right? But like this one feels very modern of its time compared to like some of the other movies that were out this decade. I don't know.
I mean it just ushered in, yeah, because it was the first one, it was the pioneer of this type of, and now we've seen, worse examples of it, better examples, like everything in between. But I think, like the season itself, this was like not expected to win like in the fall at all. And then like all the critics awards were really divided. So there was no front runner.
Right. You can kind of
So
get this sense by the nominations looking at that.
yeah. So it just felt, and I think this lineup is like fine. Like it's
It's
totally
it's
fine. I would have obviously nominated Roger Rabbit.
it's very weak. And I guess we'll talk about that. We could add in the movies we nominate. Roger Rabbit
Yeah,
feels
like
like it must have just missed. I don't know how it didn't make it in, but
yeah,
because it's a
so from like
cartoon, I
everything
guess.
I've read, it was just like, oh, it was released in the summer, and like all of these movies were released, in Q4. And Roger Rabbit was also a Main Street populist hit, so it was like punishing a box office success, right? And it's not like serious. So, but yeah, I think like this lineup is pretty weak. And then like, like I said, like the critics awards were split. Like LA gave it to Little Dorrit.
Yep.
Like, okay, sure. New York gave it to Accidental Tourist. Fine. National Society gave it to Unbearable Lightness of Being. Sure. And NBR gave it to Mississippi Burning, which was decried at the time already as being problematic
Yes.
and inaccurate
Yes.
because it was uplifting the fictional FBI agents.
Correct.
Yes. And Rayman wasn't even in NBR's top 10. So this was like not expected to win Best Picture, And it was just the Globes that was the first place to coronate Rayman. It won there. And then I think like it just kind of snowballed with the box office and everything and like
It
word of mouth. So
it feels like box office people like the movie.
mhm.
That's it, basically, right? And it
Yeah.
makes them feel good, or it makes them, like you said, it's like an issues movie, but it's like they really like the movie, and like none of these other movies were liked or like as embraced, right? They all missing key nominations.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, as
it's not
Inside
great.
Oscar points out here, I'll read. Um okay. Uh quote, Warner's sweeps to Oscar lead, headlined the Hollywood Reporter, but despite their two Best Picture nominees, Warner Brothers executives didn't have all that much to get excited about. Neither Dangerous Liaisons nor The Accidental Tourist received Best Director nominations, thereby making them highly unlikely winners. In fact, although the inconsistencies of the pre-Oscar awards had made it seem that that Best Picture would be a free-for-all, the suspense was killed once the nominations were announced. Rayman was the only film nominated for both Best Director and Best Screenplay. So as Jack Matthews wrote in the LA Times, quote, "The Oscar race this year is going to resemble a friendly game of bingo. The center spot, Best Picture, is free. Just write down Rayman and move on."
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So what other pictures did you have for Roger Rabbit?
Roger Rabbit, Fish Called Wanda, and I wrote down Big, but I don't
Me
know
too.
because I feel like yes and no because it's like, also a populist hit, and then I also have like Rabbit in there.
Yeah, I put down Big too because they had the screenplay nomination too, right, with the acting. So I feel like it would have gotten in.
And then like I didn't know.
So
So I wrote down like Gorillas in the Mist. I
yeah,
was just
same.
like, yeah. I feel because that got 5 nominations,
Hmm.
right? Yeah, and then I don't know after that because even though like Marty got the director nomination, I'm like I can't see
I
that making
I wrote
picture.
down A Cry in the Dark as my 10th.
So it would just be Meryl in Best Picture.
Kind of. I mean, it's a tough. I mean, there would have been the other movies I wrote down that I think should have been considered, like Die Hard, Running on Empty, Bull Durham, Midnight Run, and Bird, but I don't think any of those would have gotten in. So,
No, I mean I also wrote down Run on Empty, and I guess like maybe because it got River and Naomi.
right.
So yeah, I also wrote down Married to the Mob.
Would have been nice. Uh, Let me see here. So we go
But
Cher. So Cher gave out Best Actress, Best Picture choice. Excuse me.
yes,
They saved Cher for Best Picture.
yeah, Alan also mixed up like who presented the categories.
Yes.
So,
So Tom Cruise and Dustin Hoffman did Best Actress.
yeah, and Cher does Best Picture, and the producer Rayman,
Yes.
Mark Johnson, nominated this year for The Holdovers.
Yep. Best Director Barry Levinson wins.
Congratulations to him.
No doubt was going to win, seemingly.
Yeah. So this they snubbed Stephen Frears for
Yes.
Dangerous Liaisons.
Pretty shocking, I would say. The other nominees in this category, like we said, Marty for Last Temptation of Christ, Charles Crichton for A Fish Called Wanda, Alan Parker for Mississippi Burning, and Mike Nichols for Working Girl.
Yeah, so they snubbed Stephen Frears and Lawrence Kasdan for The Accidental Tourist,
Correct.
the 2 Best Picture nominees. And then I have this, I have too many tabs. Okay. So the New York Times is a post-nominations story. I just like this paragraph. The directors who refused to nominate Steven Spielberg in 1985, even though his movie The Color Purple got 11 other nominations, nominated Martin Scorsese this year, even though his movie The Last Temptation of Christ got no other nominations.
I was surprised Marty even went. I was kind of surprised. He's just there. They don't show him at all, and then he's just there at the end.
I mean, they have no reason to show him
I
any other
know.
time.
I gotta say, looking at this and just thinking, I truly have no idea how Robert Zemeckis did not get nominated for Roger Rabbit. I know it wins like a
I
special
think it's too
Oscar.
populist. He got in at DGA.
I would have put him in over probably Marty. I don't know. I'm like, how did he not get in?
I think
How
it's
does Alan
another.
Parker get in?
I think like, well, it. I think because like Roger Rabbit was not nominated for Best
I
Picture,
know.
and
I
then
know.
it's also I think he got this. I think Robert got the Steven treatment here. It was like punishing you for the successful movie.
And hilariously, we'll later get Forrest Gump in here. It feels like another one where it's like, oh well, you paid your dues on these early big movies that made a ton of money, and now you have a movie that makes $1 billion
Yeah,
basically.
and then like as we know, Marty and Last Temptation of Christ is exactly the type of like highbrow stuff that Branch would go for as a lone nominee here anyway. So,
Yes.
and yeah, and I think like by this time, even though like as we know, and as he has talked about himself, like he doesn't make movies for the Oscars, and that's why like he has not won at this point yet. But um, I feel like they, even if that were true, I think like they do kind of like respect the swings that he takes,
Yeah,
you know,
always. And
and like they had his back here with like the controversy over the
yeah,
film.
and we've seen this decade certainly, and just in general, we know they're gonna always like the filmmaker does something that is like auteur driven. They're gonna like take the bet on him, even if it's a lone nominee, right? So
Yeah, like he's Marty is not Steven here,
no.
so yeah.
Uh, where are you on Working Girl, Joyce?
I enjoy Girl. I like Harrison Ford
I'm gonna
in it.
mention him definitely later here. I think he's great in it.
I think it's a fun movie, not a fave though.
I rewatched it.
It's like a B movie to
Yeah,
me.
it's definitely like a B. I was a little disappointed. It's not as good as you want it to be. That's my takeaway. It should be better. I
I
think it's
think
better in your mind.
I think it's better by the way or like in conversation or at least like on the internet when people like I mean it's not like it's like being stand all the time on the internet, but when people
Mm,
talk about it, it's
they talk about it like it's a great classic Nora Ephron movie, and it's really not.
yeah, and I think I mean I haven't seen this in a while, but I think my issue with it is really the script and Tess.
Yeah, the script is
So
not my fave.
no.
Uh,
So yeah.
best actor choice.
Well, wait, who else did you have for
Oh,
director?
for director. Wow, duh.
Wow, so
Well, we
rude.
mentioned. I mean, I mentioned the Kazan and Frears, Zemeckis, and Eastwood. I had too, but then I had
Yeah.
a bunch of people would have never gotten nominated. But I wrote down, like you said, like we were saying, Jonathan Demme, Francis Ford Coppola for Tucker, the Man in His Dreams. Uh, Michael Apted for Gorillas in the Mist. Sidney Lumet for Running on Empty. I feel like probably could have gotten in. If Marty
Yeah, I
wasn't
have
there, I wouldn't
Sydney.
have been surprised if Sidney gets in, right, as a
Yeah.
lone nominee or something. Fred Schleppisi. I'm bad at names. Cry in the Dark.
You're just all in on Cry in the Dark.
Putting right in. And
Or the
Penny,
international title is Evil Angels, right?
yes.
Yeah.
And Penny Marshall for Big, which would have been great. But
That Penny. No. They
no,
would have not done that.
never.
No.
Anybody else you had?
No. I do have a lot of people for actor though.
Okay. So best actor, Dustin Hoffman wins for Rain Man. I do think it's a fabulous performance, so I'm not mad that he won. The other nominees are Gene Hackman for Mississippi Burning, Tom Hanks for Big, Edward James Olmos for Stand and Deliver, and Max von Sydow for Pell the Conqueror. Or
Yeah, so
Pele the
those two,
Conqueror.
Ed and Max were the surprise nominees here, and they and like one of the snubs was Jeremy Irons for Dead Ringers, which we also haven't mentioned yet, but I
Yes.
think that is just like too weird for
Yes.
them, you know? Where is this? I have, oh my gosh, I can't even find this anymore. Okay. So Jeremy says, quote, I got a big response from people in Los Angeles when I wasn't nominated. People I hardly knew wrote to me to say they thought it was a disgrace I was passed over. But it's not a life enhancing movie, and the Oscars being the sort of birthday party of the movies, I think they like movies that show human beings at their best, not at their worst, which is what Dead Ringers was. So I sort of understood it. So talk about Edward and Max as surprise nominees, and these dark horses hadn't been idle, though. Von Sydow's campaign had kicked off in early December when the Hollywood Reporter's Robert Osborne reminded everyone, quote, unbelievable, but Max has never been nominated for an Academy Award, has never been an Academy Award nominee before, despite the portfolio of consistently great work. And the Swedish actor was feted by the Women in Film Institute at the Zanuck Theater on the 20th Century Fox lot. The LA Times reported that, quote, Omo's backers, including his agent and the film's investors, launched their marketing campaign for the actor several weeks ago after concluding that the studio wasn't doing enough. Their strategy paid off when Omos appeared on GMA at the nomination as the nominations were announced and got to relish the news on camera.
And then as part of the Alan Carr compadres thing, he puts both of them together to present, which I thought was cute.
Yeah, the surprise nominees.
The two people I wrote, I mean, I mentioned this would have never happened, so like I'll just say it, but I know it wouldn't happen. De Niro, I think, is fantastic in Midnight Run and should have gotten a Best Actor nomination. The person I actually do think who should have gotten in is Bob Hoskins. I think that is just like even rewatching it now, And like I said, I'm not hot on the movie as I was probably as like an 11-year-old, but he's fucking amazing in it. It's like a really amazing performance. He's playing with cartoons. It's so
Exactly.
good.
It's great. I feel
The
like if that movie came out now, there would have been such a bigger push from fans
Oh my
for
God,
it,
he's so
so
good in it. He's so good in it. And they
yeah.
wanted, I was reading the Wikipedia page, so you know it's true. They had talked about like Harrison Ford, like real famous people for this
Mhm.
role. And they ended up with Bob Hoskins. Spielberg was like, he just looks like he's from the era. And he does. And he nails
Yeah.
it. Like he absolutely kills it. He's so good.
I know. I was really because he died pretty young too, and I didn't rewatch Roger Rabbit then when he died. I was like, oh, I should rewatch it, but I didn't do it. But I was like, I wish he had been nominated for that. And you know what? I would have voted for him
I don't
over
think he would have
Dustin.
won over Hoffman, but
He
I
would have
think
never won.
no. How about Forrest Whitaker for Bird? I wrote down. Feels like another miss.
Yeah, he won a can
Yeah.
for Bird. They just didn't like Bird,
No.
so.
Who else do you have here?
I obviously have Keaton for Clean and Sober.
Okay.
I know some people think he could also be in lead for Beetlejuice, but I think like he's the titular role, but I think it's supporting.
It would have been a clearer path to win in supporting.
And he could have been a double nominee.
Yeah.
I have a DDL for An Unbearable Lightness of Being.
Yes. 1 year away from the DDL Oscar
Yeah, my left
inauguration.
foot. I have John Cleese for A Fish Called Wanda. William
He,
Hurt for Accidental Tourist. And
so
now they're
both
just off William Hurt.
it really feels like off him completely, right? Like because he got 3 nominations in a row,
Wins.
wins, and probably could have just easily gotten a name check nomination here for this
Yeah.
movie, which was the Best Picture nominee.
And then who else? I have Michael Caine for Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, which we haven't mentioned yet either. But yeah, like this. So Dustin, this is a very typical now too you see of these types of performances. These, I mean, not really a biopic, but like, you know what I mean? Like if they're playing a
Yep.
disabled character and the actor does not dominate the critic circuit, because that's just not the type of performance the critics groups go for. So Dustin did not dominate critics, but once the Globes came around and the movie was ticking off, it was over.
He gets a huge ovation. I think I wrote down maybe a standing ovation for him. Huge. It was like absolutely the biggest ovation of the whole show, I would say, is his win.
Yeah, it was just a very beloved movie at the time. And I think, even though like he has a difficult reputation, because there's like something in here too about like Sidney Policing, like at the worst experience with him on Tootsie. But I think they just respect him as an actor, and I think it is a good performance. And he is also someone who feels like should have 2 Oscars.
Yeah. I mean, he could have won for Tootsie, but he didn't. So
Yeah.
this feels like fine. And his speech is very nice. And he forgets Barry Levinson and Tom Cruise. And then later, when he's out with Tom Cruise, has to say thank you to Tom Cruise. Would you? My big thing is I want to fraud Tom in supporting for this, even though he's clearly the lead. Where are you on that?
I mean, they're co-leads. I think so. If this came out now, obviously they would be split. I
They
mean,
would
I think
obviously be
like
split.
Dustin has more of an argument, or you could make a better argument as of Dustin being supporting than Tom being supporting.
Yet I think they would fraud Tom in supporting.
Yeah.
And do you think he would have won?
No.
I guess we'll talk about this when we get there. I really think he's really great, Tom Cruise, in this movie. So I don't know. It's like a great movie star performance.
I don't think he would have won because he was not what people loved about the movie. You know what I mean?
I think that's true. They do
So
love
it's not exactly a two-hander, even though he sets the story in motion.
it, and it feels like so he had this era. This is like ascendant Tom Cruise. So you have Color of Money. He's supporting with like Paul Newman wins an Oscar. He's got Top Gun, biggest movie star in the world, and then he's got this with biggest movie in the world. So he's still leading it with Dustin Hoffman, another Oscar winner and another Best Actor win. So when he does Born on the 4th of July for next year, he gets nominated. Maybe could have won, but not against Daniel Day-Lewis. And like the nomination is basically Harrison Ford-esque in Witness style, right? Where it just is like, hey, good job being in movies that people like. Here's your nomination and fuck off.
And also another performance, like disabled.
Yeah.
Like,
Um,
but yeah, I don't think he, I don't think it would have swept like that. I think it was just
no.
always about Dustin with
Yeah.
this movie. So, and then like Tom Hanks, like I said, like he was not going to win. This is also his, first nomination. I think it's too, um, like silly, and I say that with love. Like obviously it's a gimmick in the film, but like it works, and I think the whole movie works because of him. And I think it's really hard to play these types of like body swaps and age swap type of roles where you have to inherently be yourself in some way, but also capture that innocence
Yeah.
of a child. And I think he really pulled it off. And I think there's, something really charming and like witty about his performance. So
It feels, I mean, it's a great performance, and it definitely feels like welcome to the club
yeah,
type
it was
thing,
for
right?
sure Welcome to the Club. And it was like, comedy,
Yeah.
like kind of like a kids movie-esque. So like he wasn't winning, but it was, yeah.
And Gene Hackman for Mississippi Burning, dare I say filler nom?
Uh yeah. So, but
Love Gene Hackman though. One of my
congrats to
all-time
him.
faves.
He'll have Unforgiven soon.
Yeah. Uh Best Actress choice, Jodie Foster wins for The Accused.
Solo nomination for The Accused.
Solo nomination, great win, great speech. The other nominees were Glenn Close for Dangerous Liaisons, Melanie Griffith for Working Girl, Meryl Streep for A Cry in the Dark, and Sigourney Weaver for Gorillas in the Mist.
One of Sigourney's two
Mm-hmm.
of the night. So I have something to read about The Accused.
Great.
So it was inspired by a real case, a real gang rape. So producer Sherry Lansing elaborated on the film's heroine. Quote, "We purposely chose a woman who might be perceived, and I hate this word, but I don't know what other word to use, as a slut. She's not a debutante. Do you know what I mean?" So then they talk about, Jodie was like, "I can't stop playing a victim just because of John Hinckley," and they spent 5 days shooting the gang rape scene. And then, so she got great reviews for it. And then Sherry says, she hopes, quote, "that no one seeing The Accused will ever believe that rape is sexy." It was a lesson lost, however, on television critic Michael Medved, who, giving his Oscar predictions on CNN, picked Foster because, quote, "she suffers, she emotes, she gets raped on screen in a very sexy scene."
Yikes.
So
Do you think we'll ever get just gonna move past that one. Sorry, Michael Medved. Sorry to that man. Do you think this is now 2 years in a row we've had like iconic acting performance wins with
we
no
have
other
a Glenn
nominations?
and Meryl 2 years in a row.
We have Glenn and Meryl 2 years in a row, but I'm just saying like Michael Douglas wins for Wall Street with nothing else. Jodie Foster wins for The Accused, nothing else. These are great wins, great performances. Will we ever get that? I mean, like we've gotten that, I get. It just feels like nowadays that's not gonna really happen
Well,
as
so the
much.
last Best Actress, the solo nominee was Julianne Moore, and the last one, um, for actor was Forrest Whitaker.
That's long ago.
Yeah,
And I feel like nowadays it's harder and harder to get in there with just the one nomination,
I
but also
mean,
maybe you would just get a filler nom for something else, I
like
guess.
it's way more common to just get in as a solo nominee in Best
Yeah,
Actress
than
than
to
Best
win.
Actor, and in terms of win too, it's more common to win in Best Actress than in Best Actor. I mean, Glenn Close came close again,
With the
The
wife.
Wife.
I feel like Brendan Fraser would have gone close if it didn't have the makeup, right? Like the whale was only going to get him in, so.
I mean, well, Hong Chow.
Right. True. I
So
forgot. I forgot she was nominated
forgot she was nominated. How rude.
for that iconic performance that I spoke to her about.
Um, no, I think like, obviously, as we know, awards are not a meritocracy.
No.
But I think both Michael Douglas and Jodie had other things going for them. And like Jodie, her narrative obviously was also too, like this was her first like true like uh movie film as an adult, right?
Yes.
Like that she's like taken seriously, and it's like child actress made good. And obviously
Yeah.
they already nominated her when she was a teenager
Right.
for Taxi Driver. Nice of them to nominate Marty here so they could be
I
at the
I
Grammys.
thought of that.
He
It's
could
like
watch them.
Naiad. It's like this year with Naiad.
Yeah. And yeah, like I think I haven't seen this movie in a while either, but I think it's a good performance. More obviously, she has better work to come in Silence of the
Certainly.
Lambs.
Yeah.
And I think, one of the most common what if scenarios that Oscar fans like to posit is like if Oscar voters knew that Silence of the Lambs was on its way, would they still have given this to Jodie Foster for The Accused? Because I think, a lot of people just want Glenn Close to have an Oscar.
And did she really need one for Dangerous? I don't know. I feel like she should have won for Fatal Attraction. I'm not that nuts about Dangerous Liaisons. I prefer Cruel Intentions, Joyce, in my Dangerous Liaisons adaptations.
I think um a win for Fatal Attraction would be much cooler because of the type of role. I mean, the both roles are similar, but like Alex is like far more villainous,
Yeah.
right? Or at least the way she's portrayed in the film. Whereas uh in Dangerous Liaisons, like Isabel, she's manipulative, which I think was an issue with voters too. Like she's like sort of villainous, but it's a
Yeah.
lot more complex. So I think she gives a better performance in Dangerous Liaisons. So if you're voting by performance, I would give it to her for Dangerous Liaisons. But in terms of just like impact and just, like cachet and like the cool factor, like it'll be so cool if she had won an Oscar for Fatal Attraction, right?
I think so, and it would fit in with this era. Like I'm thinking, like I just like Michael Douglas winning for Gordon Gekko. It's like these are characters who should have
But
Oscars,
he's a man.
basically. I know, but I'm just saying, like in terms of all, like Nurse Ratched, right? Like these are characters who deserve Oscars because the characters are so memorable.
Yeah, I think the difference between like Nurse Ratched and Alex Forrest is that like Nurse Ratched is an outright villain through and through, right? Like you never question it. Whereas I think
Right.
with like just the setup of Fatal Attraction and the affair and everything, there's it's more complicated with like Alex's psyche, where
Hmm.
like as the viewer, you just never have to question like Nurse Ratchet's
Yeah,
motives.
Nurse Ratched like Jaws, basically.
Yeah, yeah. So I
Uh,
think they have an easier time with women, especially obviously
obviously,
avoiding outright villains like that.
right. Uh, other people I wrote down, I have Susan Sarandon for Bull Durham,
Yes.
Jamie Lee Curtis for A Fish Called Wanda. I don't think she would have ever got nominated, but like clearly had it being, it's was a big hit with them. So I feel like at least certainly couldn't have hurt to have her in the conversation. Amy Irving for Crossing Delancey, which you mentioned, I think was a Globe nominee, right?
Mhm.
And Winona Ryder for Beetlejuice.
I also have Michelle Pfeiffer for Married to the Mob, and I feel like she, Jamie, and Susan gave better comedic performances than Melanie in Working Girl. No shade to Melanie.
So I don't think Melanie's particularly good in Working Girl, but she has the iconic line that I think is the reason she got nominated. I have a head for business and a bod for sin. That was it. She's nominated just from that line reading, and that's it. Great line, great delivery. That's why she's nominated.
I mean, I think it's just kind of, again, like perfect storm for her. Like it was like a good time to nominate her,
Yeah,
and the movie obviously did well. I was up for
best picture nominated.
Best Picture. So, and I actually think, even though that she's a lone nominee, and we talked about last week with Meryl how this was like now she's just starting to just rack up nominations for like mid movies and sometimes mid performances. I think A Cry in the Dark is one of her better performances. I think the movie is mid,
I,
but she's
I,
really great in A Cry in the Dark.
I also think the movie's better than Out of Africa.
It is way better than Out of Africa.
So
But like the movie itself is like fine, and she elevates the movie. And I
yeah,
think her performance is really great. Like I don't want this, and obviously it's kind of the dingo line has been mocked, and it's kind of turned into like Sally Field's whole thing with like, you really like me. It's like completely misquoted, and like I think people mock the film because of they just see that line everywhere. But I like the character of like Lindy Chamberlain, I think, she is not the stereotypical
Mhm.
type of sympathetic mourning mother, and I think Meryl really played that superbly here, and she's always been kind of knocked for her technical performances, and like she's not someone who like easily exudes warmth, right? Like there's like there
No.
can be some like little iciness to her performances, or like a remoteness, and I think that really works with this character, because it's like the whole like media circus was like they wanted her to be crying and mourning the loss of her baby, but she's not like that. So I think like her skills as an actress was really put to good use here, and really effective, because you sympathize with her, but you also understand that like the the negativity and the hatred that
Hmm.
is happening to her. Like she's kind of brought it on herself, and it reminded me of Love and Death, which like
Hmm.
no one saw last year, but that whole thing was um she uh murdered her best friend with an axe, and then like during the trial she like her lawyer told her, you need to like put on performance to a Candy, like you have to put on performance and like seem sympathetic and seem more feminine, so they just completely
Right.
changed her wardrobe to make her more sympathetic to the public and the jury and everything, and like make her seem meek, and Lindy was not about that in here.
No. Yeah, it's good. She's very good in it. Who else you write down?
I have Christine Lottie on Running on Empty.
Hmm.
Um, and then yeah, so like Sigourney, of her two nominations, she was not winning this one.
No, she
That
didn't
was like
deserve.
understood
She
that
didn't
she was
deserve to win either of them, frankly. I don't know. I don't think she's great. She's fine in Working Girl. It just feels like wasn't going to happen. So
but like it was just like, well, so she was the fifth. Yeah, she was the fifth person, because it was Faye Bainter, Teresa Wright, Barry Fitzgerald, Jessica Lange. Yeah, so she was the fifth person to get double noms in the same year,
mhm.
and the four previous they all won in supporting, and lost in lead. So that was like the thinking too, that she will win in supporting, and also I think because Working Girl was like the bigger movie too. So it was like this was a wash for her in Best
Right.
Actress. Um, and I guess we should mention the three-way tie at the Globes in Drama Actress,
Yeah.
because it was Jodie, Sigourney, and Shirley MacLaine from Madame Suzuka.
Yes.
She was snubbed.
I gotta say, Joyce, I literally never even heard of that movie until I was reading about it here.
I mean, I only know of it as part of this three-way
The
tie.
tie. Okay.
So,
Is it like a 30 Rock joke? Do you think it's real?
um, I mean, it's written by Ruth Per
Oh,
Jabla. So
we love her. Yeah.
yeah, but they haven't touched Shirley since terms.
No.
It's like
She
done.
deserved it though.
She deserved it, and then they're done with her.
Best supporting actor, Joyce, Kevin Kline, like we mentioned, wins for A Fish Called Wanda, a truly outright comedic performance. The other nominees are Alec Guinness for A Little Dorrit, Martin Landau for Tucker, The Man in His Dream, River Phoenix for Running on Empty, and Dean Stockwell for Married to the Mob.
Great performance in Married to the Mob, Dean Stockwell,
Yeah.
R.I.P. This was a surprise win for Kevin Kline, like we said. But this was also kind of like an open race
Who would have won if you
this
would have
year.
Alec Guinness? I mean, who was going to win here?
I think the feeling might be Martin, just because um he was old. And I mean, if
Yeah.
you look at like the previous winners, we had Sean Connery, Michael Caine.
Yeah, it would have been like the right. He would have won
Yeah.
as like the sentimental pick.
Yeah.
He
And
doesn't
then
get that win until Ed Wood when Samuel Jackson loses.
Yeah. And then so Kevin was a surprise nominee. He wasn't even nominated at the Globes. He reminds me of Marissa Tomei, like the surprise nominee who actually goes on to win. Because I think um the performance stands out among the other nominees, right? And it's funny, so it's entertaining. And they clearly just like don't care about any of these other movies because none of these are Best Picture nominees.
Right. That's why I was like, in hindsight, it doesn't feel like a surprise at all
Yeah,
because it's like all these other movies are movies they do not give a single fuck about. And
yeah.
like, clearly Fish Called Wanda they enjoyed. And so he would win, right? With no other
Yeah, and
competition
he's
from his own
also like
movie.
not new, like he's not as old as Martin Landau, but
Right.
it's like he's been around,
A
right?
lot of
Like
friends.
yeah, a lot of
A lot of
friends,
friends.
married to Phoebe Cates. Like,
Can't go wrong there.
yeah.
Uh,
Um, so it was a nice surprise, I think. Like I don't have an issue with this win.
I
So
don't have an issue with his win, but I literally came up with like four people immediately who I think should have got nominated, and all probably would have been better winners.
well, Michael Keaton for Beetlejuice.
So Michael Keaton for Beetlejuice, certainly. And I wonder if he would have won if he was there.
I don't know.
Uh,
Because it's still like goofy, right? It's like
right.
that. Yeah.
Harrison Ford for Working Girl, it just feels like the most obvious nomination ever, regardless of the movie being fine. Like, man, it's just Harrison Ford doing movie star shit. Like, I think he would have won if he was there.
You know what? They gave him his nomination for Witness, and
Like,
fine.
I just am like, I cannot believe he didn't get nominated even. And I really do think he would have won if he was there because they like, I mean, they also like Fish Called Wanda, but I think it would have been a little having him in there, Best Picture nominee, big movie star. It feels like he'd be more in line with like Michael Caine and fucking Sean Connery than Kevin Kline or Martin Landau. But so that was two. Tom Cruise for Rain Man, like we talked about, sure, wouldn't happen, but like, and then I also had Christopher Lloyd for Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I feel like should have got nominated.
Sure.
He's great. It's a great performance.
That's fine. I have Tim Robbins for Bull Durham.
Sure.
And John Malkovich for Dangerous Liaisons.
And the
So
last,
the other thing is like we didn't mention with Glenn, like Liaisons was late.
yeah,
So it was a December release too, but it was just like not on the radar really. And she also missed the Globe nomination, which like sounds weird on paper, right? Because you would think like the Globes would go apeshit over Dangerous Liaisons,
mm-hmm.
but it was just late. So I do wonder like would they have done like a four-way tie if she had been there, or would she have like been part of the three-way tie, or would she just won by herself? Like I feel like she missed out on momentum because the film was late.
Right. Uh, Other person I wrote down, Alan Rickman for Die Hard. Would have never happened, but I do think it's like one of the great performances. He's so good. R.I.P.
Um, he walked so Tommy Lee Jones and The Fugitive could run.
Do you think like Michael Palin was close to getting nominated for Fish Called Wanda?
No.
How about Harvey Keitel for The Last Temptation of Christ?
I don't think any of them.
Okay. Uh, Supporting actress Joyce. Gina Davis wins for The Accidental Tourist.
Another surprise.
The other nominees are Working Girl star Joan Cusack and Sigourney Weaver, Frances McDormand for Mississippi Burning, her first nom, and Michelle Pfeiffer for Dangerous Liaisons. Who is the favorite here, Joyce? You said Sigourney Weaver, I guess.
The favorite was Sigourney, for sure.
So much so that Alan Carr has Melanie Griffith and Don Johnson giving this award out together.
Well, she won the Globe for this. And yeah, and then like I said, like up to this point, every actor who had gone double noms had won one, and it was always in supporting. And this is obviously the Working Girl was the bigger movie than Gorillas in the Mist. And I think it's kind of the character too was kind of like a typical supporting character win, like the bitchy boss.
Right.
And I think it's a fun performance.
Yeah,
It's
she's
like
fine.
she's not like a total bitch, right? Like it's like she's and she's funny too. So, um, and yeah, like she manages to, like humanize her,
Yeah.
and that she's not like a complete villain. So I mean, if she had won, that would been fine, but yeah, it was an upset here, with Gina Davis winning, who was also not nominated at the Globe. So just, I like, can you imagine, like, this one just never happened now, like all these misses, quote
It's
unquote, by the
great.
Globes. I
Yeah,
love it.
no,
It's
it's
so like,
great. It's
imagine,
really good.
like, I mean, I was gonna say imagine being alive. We were alive, but we were not
It was
following
a
this.
great, no, it was a great, this is like a great year for this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, like, so I mean, like, I was thinking like we had two surprise acting wins here, and both in supporting. It's like, can you imagine that happening again? Like, we're lucky we
No,
get one surprise acting win,
no, yeah.
you
It
know?
doesn't happen.
And yeah, so uh Gina wins.
So why do
And
you
then
think she won? Just because they liked the movie more? They liked her more likable performance?
I actually think, I mean, I think she's fine in Accidental Tourist. Like, I don't, it's
Not a
fine.
movie anybody has cared one lick about for 25 years.
No, like she's just kind of like, daffy, and
Yeah.
like, I mean, I've also never read the book, and I'm assuming you have not either.
No,
So
please.
I actually feel like maybe Sigourney was hurt by Joan Cusack also being here,
I
because Joan
wondered if
is
that
a
was
total
that.
scene stealer
Mm-hmm.
in Working Girl, and Joan was not nominated at the Globes where Sigourney won. So I wonder if
Maybe.
she ate into some of her votes. So, um, I don't know. So then after the Oscars, uh, Sigourney said, quote, "I figure I made history. I'm the only nominee who's lost twice in one night." And then later she says, "It was horrible. Everybody was so embarrassed for me that nobody wanted to talk to me. They should have
Oh,
an anteroom for the losers, and I made my parents fly all the way out for
oh,
it, and they were disappointed for me."
oh. Now I feel like she should have won.
I mean, I think that's, the flip side of it. Like, we love these surprises, right? But then, you know, if you're in the race, like, you have people telling you for months, or people predicting you for months, of telling you like you're gonna win, you're safe, you're a lock. So then they might start to believe it
I do
too.
think the problem with that, I think the problem is that while it's not an outright villain performance, based on the winners in this category, especially when it's like a younger woman, like we saw with Angelica Houston too, like a few years earlier, in a performance that I think is bad in a terrible movie. It just feels like they want the likable ingenue kind of like flighty type instead of like more, even if like Gina Davis in real life is like a substantial person. She's
Yeah.
playing like that's a typical like performance of this time, right? Or like winning, like it seems like it's just like we
Yeah,
like a
it's
young
kind of
girl,
it's
pretty
yeah,
young girl
it's
wins,
very
right?
very daffy. It's
Yeah,
like a Mira Sorvino and Mighty
right,
Aphrodite.
right. It's like that. This era is like pretty young girl wins.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess you could say it's like the same thing that might have damaged Glenn
Yeah,
with Sigourney here. It's the kind of an unlikable
right.
character.
The sexism of the Academy playing here, perhaps.
Yeah, like I think it's that, and I think like Joan being around too.
That definitely doesn't help. I wonder if Joan was gone, would she have won? Maybe. I mean, like,
Maybe, I don't know.
uh, I'll tell you who I think should have won: Kathleen Turner for Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Have her right at the top of my list of potential nominees.
Should have been nominated.
She could have been known for Accidental Tourist too, but Roger Rabbit, she's fucking great.
No one is talking about her in
No,
Accidental Tourist in
no.
1988.
Uh, other people, I wrote down Jamie Curtis here too, potentially, right? Like for supporting, sure.
Jamie, I feel like she would have been
Yeah,
lead, but
and Valeria Golino for Rain Man, Joyce. If they were really gaga for Rain Man, they could have put her here.
I did a Mercedes Rail for Married to the Mob, future
Sure.
Oscar winner.
Yep.
Martha Plimpton for Running
Hmm.
on Empty.
Running Empty is a good movie. I don't know if people think about it all anymore.
No, but they should.
Good movie. Good Judd Hirsch.
Um, Lena Olin for Unbearable Lightness of Being. I also wrote down Jodie Foster for Stealing Home.
Interesting.
Double nods for Jodie Foster.
How about Diana Venora for Bird?
Yeah, I have her down too. Sure, but they didn't like Bird.
No. Didn't
So,
even mention Clint for director. That's how little they like this movie.
I mean, we said that he won the Globe.
Uh,
But yeah, this so now of the actors who have double nominations, some of them were the Oscar winners before their double noms, or they have won since, like Julianne Moore. So Sigourney and Scarlett Johansson are currently the only two people who have not won an Oscar in their careers yet with double noms in a year.
I don't expect Sigourney Weaver, unfortunately, to win an Oscar.
I think ScarJo can do it.
I think ScarJo could do it. It depends on the movie, but she's definitely not out of realm of possibility to have win.
Yeah, it sucks that Sigourney has not made it back since.
I don't really know what she would have been in that would have made it back.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm just like looking at her.
Yeah, not a lot of stuff that she would make that like a good career, but like not a lot of stuff that gets into awards.
I mean, her nominations are cool though. Like she has
Great.
Working Girl,
Aliens, Working
Aliens,
Girl.
Girl is in this,
Yeah.
right? I don't know. I mean, she had I mean, I remember the ice storm, like, trying to be a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, Heartbreaker's a classic, but never
No.
would have happened. So
Avatar, maybe? Next Avatar movie in 5 years?
the next 7 avatars, sure.
Screenplay winners, Joyce. We do these. Rain Man wins for original screenplay, Ron Bass and Barry Morrow. The other nominees are Big, Bull Durham, A Fish Called Wanda, and Running on Empty. Good list of nominees.
Yeah, so missing Working Girl and Mississippi Burning
Yes.
here.
I would have put Roger Rabbit in, or is it adapted?
That's adapted because the characters.
Sure. How about Midnight Run
Sure.
and Beetlejuice?
Beetlejuice.
And then adapted screenplay, Dangerous Liaison wins. Christopher Hampton, future Oscar winner for The Father.
Mm-hmm.
Other nominees are Accidental Tourist, Gorillas in the Mist, Little Dorrit, and The Unbearable Lightness of Being.
Yeah. I also have A Cry in the Dark.
I had Roger Rabbit and Die Hard. Die Hard would be an adapted screenplay, Joyce, because it's based on a inspired by a book.
I think like these wins are fine. I don't know if like Rayman needs the screenplay win, but I understand it. And again, it was the only Best Picture nominee with the director and screenplay nomination. So
we talked about this at the top. This is a great year for movies, or very good year for movies, and these Oscar nominees were very uninspired. I don't know. Dangerous Liaisons is not a movie I think that people think about anymore, unless it's about Cruel Intentions.
it's a movie that like cineasts and like film Twitter thinks about, but it's not a general public type of film.
No.
But I don't even know, like, I wouldn't say most of these are in that category either. So it's like, I mean, I don't think any of these are in that category.
No,
So
I guess you're right.
it's just, I think, it's a good adaptation.
Sure. Christopher
guess.
Hampton, 2 Oscars. That's a good trivia question.
Yeah.
I feel like people would not know that.
I mean, I prefer The Father to
probably.
So I mean, I think it more films were screwed in original.
Yeah.
Because you can make a case for Big winning, Running on Empty, Bull Durham. So
I wonder if nowadays Running on Empty would win. Maybe not. I don't know.
I don't know. I think, yeah. I don't think so.
We go through usually a song and score. Let the River Run from Working Girl. Clearly a fantastic song.
Carly Simon, so excited.
Calling You from Baghdad Cafe and Two Hearts from Buster. Never heard either one of these songs.
Well, Phil Collins wrote the lyrics to Two Hearts.
I know. I saw. And then for score, the Milagro Beanfield War, Robert Redford's follow-up to Ordinary People, is an Oscar-winning movie. Another good trivia question, perhaps. Dave Grusin wins. John Williams for The Accidental Tourist, George Fenton for Dangerous Liaisons, Maurice Jarre for Gorillas in the Mist, and Hans Zimmer for Rain Man. Great score on Rain Man. Just like really kind of like leaning into the 80s of it all.
Mm-hmm.
I would have had certainly Die Hard in here. I think it's great. I don't know. Probably
I
Beetlejuice.
can't say I've heard the score for Milagro Beanfield War.
Beetlejuice certainly would have made it in for me, and Scrooged,
Yeah.
I feel like, are both great scores. I think both by Danny Elfman, right? Did Danny Elfman do Scrooge too?
You tell me.
He did. They're both great. And then there was some other great lot of this is a fun Oscars, Joyce, because there's a lot of in these shorts and categories, real famous people win. Real winners, Joyce.
Well, that's like the point of them, basically.
This year it's like the proof of concept. For live action short, Dean Parasot and Stephen Wright win.
Mm-hmm.
Dean Parasot directed Galaxy Quest. Stephen Wright, very funny comic. K-Billy Super Sounds of the 70s, maybe, if you know Reservoir Dogs.
They won for the appointments of Dennis Jennings.
And Dean Parasot's wife was Sally Menke, who gets a shout out, R.I.P., to the great editor, Sally Menke.
Yeah, a very tragic death in
So sad.
2010, Quentin's go-to.
So sad.
Yeah,
I was almost tempted to say it's strange to imagine. It's like strange to think about what the recent Quentin movies would have been like if she were still alive.
Yeah.
I think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is like his best film. It's Fred Raskin is the editor, and like that is a great film. But some of the other ones I feel like would have benefited from Sally, perhaps.
Yeah.
I don't dislike any of the ones without her, but I think she was such a great match for him, and the sensibilities are great. And the other thing was in the short film animated short choice. John Lasseter wins his first Oscar before Toy Story.
Tin Toy.
Tin Toy.
With
the first time a
Will and
computer
Marie.
animated movie won.
Yeah. It was the first win for Pixar.
Yes.
Tin
Toy. Another great trivia question, and he gives a shout out to Steve Jobs.
And look at us now.
Look at him now. Whatever happened to John Lasseter?
I don't know.
We talked about the show a little. We mentioned Tom Selleck, just heinous. I wrote down a couple other things from the show. You said the red carpet was bad. I don't disagree, though. I wanted to note this for the gossip fans among us. Comedy star Martin Short, and then the next person they show, tonight's nominee and two-time winner Meryl Streep. So
what did they know? What did they know?
They knew. They knew. I'm like fucking Mark Ruffalo in Spotlight. They knew. But they knew. That was it. Look at that. Martin Short, Meryl Streep. Right there. That was where it started.
After this publishes, we need to make that part go viral.
Because
this will be around the time that season 4 of Only Murders returns.
Flag this for 2 months from now, but that shit happened. He says comedy star Martin Short and then Meryl Streep. They were even together before they were together.
They were edited together.
They were edited together before
back to back.
Before it became a gossip thing that they were together, maybe, or just friends. Fantastic. I was like so excited when I saw that. It's great.
I did laugh at that too, because it was like, yeah, because like he got the qualifier to descriptor, and she just got like nominee, and I'm like, LOL.
So
it's
good.
Like,
and
Marty and Meryl.
I gotta say
some great descriptors. Romantic co-stars Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn.
Yes.
Nominee and her co-star Gina Davis and Jeff Goldblum.
Fantastic.
First time nominee and best friends Don Johnson and Melanie Griffin. You might want to edit that one.
The funny thing is I was like, did they think that was a funny bit? Because they do that when they're announced too, as presenters.
Yes, they thought it was hilarious.
So stupid. I wrote down Tom Cruise with Mimi Rogers. Because they were married. I don't think people remember that at all. That Tom Cruise was married to Mimi Rogers.
People don't remember Mimi. It's rude.
Cuddly Dudley Moore.
That was weird.
How about tap dancing movie star Gregory Hines?
Yeah, I clocked that.
And the immortal Max von Sydow.
Joyce,
am I reading? Was I reading?
Yeah, were you doing it?
Did I do the announcing?
Even though it's just exactly as the way it's spelled.
Did I do the announcing for the Oscars in 1989? Max von Sydow? Jesus Christ.
And when you were, 9? Wow. Already working at 9?
That's a prodigy. Another thing I wrote down. So we mentioned all the shit at the beginning. Jane Fonda was out for some reason. This part made me laugh. Reminded me of now. A year when it can be said the world went back to the movies. When was the world not at the movies in this time? I don't even think that qualifies. And then she says, see them in a theater. Reminded me
I
of
mean,
now.
again, what did she know?
And then she made a joke. If you want to watch them on videotape, I've got some terrific videotapes you can watch.
I used to watch her workout
Sure.
videos. So,
Very famous.
mhm.
Uh, they do a Vertigo reunion, which was really cool, I thought. Kim Novak and Jimmy
It's one of the
Stewart.
C's. So,
That's a C.
mhm.
Bird won an Oscar, even though they hated it, for sound. Willie D. Burton was the first black sound winner. And he gives a very nice speech. 4-time nominee. This is his first win.
Yeah. And he was on Oppenheimer and
Mm-hmm.
Air. I talked to him for Air.
It's great.
Hmm.
Love that guy. Was he
Yeah,
cool?
very cool. We talked a lot about Michael Jordan, obviously, and Air Jordans.
Fantastic.
So
I'll go back and look that up. I'm going to Google it.
yeah. Well, it was great because like obviously Matt told him about Air while they were making Oppenheimer, and then he just like when we were talking, he didn't mention the name Oppenheimer. He was just like, I was on this other movie with Matt Damon.
It's awesome. Uh, Robert Downey Jr. I wrote down, is this his first appearance as a presenter? The ones we've watched, I feel like yes, right?
I don't know.
And he is, I wrote down full Kieran. He just is absolutely Kieran Culkin vibing.
He did it with Sybil Shepherd, right?
Yes, moonlighting star Sybil Shepherd.
Yeah. Hmm.
And then they do a moment with Billy Crystal, Joyce, before he is hired to be hosting for the first time.
He again has his own segment, his own video in the playlist.
And I wrote down Billy doing impressions. Robin loves it. Jack loves it. Jack is freaking
Robin was dying in his
dying
seat.
laughing.
Yeah.
He does like a Yul Brenner thing where he does this. He does tap dancing with a cough drop in his mouth.
Do you think that like this is like their version of like what John Mulaney did at the Governor's Awards?
It is. It absolutely is because they did 2 years in a row basically with Billy, right? Because
Mhm.
last year we had another thing, but then I went back and Joyce, we're gonna link to this because we already did the 1990 Oscars for the movies of '89. It was Billy's first host appearance, and holy shit, just so bad and racist. So I was like, oh, like I hope John Mulaney, if he hosts, is able to capitalize on his great job at like the Oscars and the Governor's Awards more so than Billy did in his first time hosting. Because Billy's first time hosting is bad. It gets much better as he goes forward.
I mean, I don't think he'll have those same issues. It was
No,
a different time.
it's different. It's different.
It was a
A lot
different
of this is it was a different. We could call this. It was a different time, maybe. Uh,
context matters.
Context matters.
So.
Another thing so like Alan Carr, obviously, like you said, run out of Hollywood, like died in disrepair because of this.
And I remember reading because he died 10 years later. He died in 1999.
Yeah.
I mean, he was pretty young too. I think he was
Yes.
62.
Died of a broken heart from the Oscars, Joyce.
Yeah, he was basically just blacklisted. And I remember reading about his death back then, and like I had already known about Snow White and the whole thing. At this point, I'm like, that's so sad. Like it's like they just wanted nothing to do with him, and so he never produced another film or show. He just went back to
Yeah.
theater.
It's
So
sad because
sad.
like some of this stuff worked. I was like, some of the presenter pairings worked. I don't think the show is like, obviously the show is not good. I think of the ones we've covered this decade, my favorite was probably the Out of Africa year, even though the winners are bad. That show I thought was really good, right? I think this one is like a mid show, but I'm like, I was thinking like he puts together Michael Caine with Sean Connery, and they bring out Roger Moore. I was legit LOL at that. I thought it was like really clever and charming, and all the actors were playing off each other so well. They have Bruce Willis and Demi Moore come out and show home movies, which Janet Maslin, I believe, absolutely fucking hated. And let me see.
Janet, another iconic opening line of her review.
Here's the Times review, just as we're talking about it. The 61st Annual Academy Awards ceremony began by creating the impression that there would never be a 62nd. The evening's opening number, which deserves a permanent place in the annals of Oscar embarrassment, was indeed as bad as that. Barely 5 minutes into the show, Merv Griffin was on hand to sing I've Got a Lovely Bunch of Coconuts, and that was only the beginning. Snow White, played as a simpering ninny, performed a duet of Proud Mary with Rob Lowe, who would have been well advised to confine all future musical activities to the shower.
Not to Lucille Ball.
This is later in the article, in the review from Janet Maslin. Mr. Gar's production also offered a number of career-killing opportunities to the various presenters, as when Tom Selleck awkwardly explained why he wasn't the show's host, parentheses, because it didn't have one, and why he wasn't being funny, parentheses, no explanation was necessary. Bruce Willis and Demi Moore introduced the Cinematography Award by showing home movies of their child. Willem Dafoe explained his close-cropped hair by explaining that he had just flown in from Auschwitz, Poland, where he was making a film. Only in the peculiar atmosphere of Oscar night could the mention of Auschwitz get a hand. Janet Maslin just on a fucking run here. It's so good.
I mean, she's not wrong about a lot of things. No, but again, I think like Alan just became a scapegoat. Like, easy to pin the blame for everything that they hated on him. And it's sad because he was essentially canceled before people were being canceled. And he was never, quote, forgiven or brought back when Hollywood has forgiven and uncanceled people for far worse,
Like
right?
real problems.
Like
Yeah.
real
Yeah.
problems. Like this is nothing. Like this is just a silly award show.
Yep.
And he could never work in the town again.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
It really is. So Alan Carr, we salute you because I don't think this was. It definitely is. To me, it's not. The response did not warrant. The show did not warrant the response to me.
No, it was obviously again not one of the best.
No.
And it felt very just like a big ideas and poor execution.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And yeah, and I think that, just like over the years with everyone just laughing and mocking Snow White, it's just turned into this own beast. And it's like print a legend, it just makes it sound like so much worse than it
I
is.
absolutely thought of that throughout a lot of this. I was like, it feels very big print the legend, and like it's like the Sally. It's honestly like the Sally Field, like you like me, you really like me of this. I do think it's like it's weird. Like I do think it's bad, but I think the
Yeah,
idea that it's like
bad.
it's definitely bad, but the idea that it's like some unusual calamity in the history of Oscar calamities feels like overblown. I guess I would say. I don't think
Yeah,
it's
and
any
also just
worse.
a complete overreaction for these actors and directors to
Gregory
write
Peck,
damn letter.
Julie
I
Andrews,
mean, like
people I really love.
you sullied the Academy. I'm like,
Paul
get over
Newman doesn't
yourself.
even show up to this fucking thing, and he's like, "You sullied the Academy. Show up, Paul. Jesus Christ, you couldn't
Listen,
show
he
up to
showed
win
up
your
last year,
Oscar."
okay, to give it to
Yeah.
Sharon.
Oh my God.
I was just
Joyce.
like,
So we
no, like
no
it's not a big deal at all.
no Joyce. We've come to the end of our Oscars playbacks here. We already did the 91, like I said. You could watch that. It's from 2 years ago. I happened
We
to
did two
re-listen to
years
it,
ago. We're
Joyce.
not doing it again.
We're not redoing it, but I gotta say, great, good job.
Chris rewatched that whole episode.
I did. I got to make sure, because if I'm going to promote it, I want to make sure we didn't say anything untoward. And you never do. I just got to make sure me. And it was great. I was like, man, these guys are great. People should really love these guys. They're great.
They should do the 80s in
They
2
should
years.
do the 80s. They're really good at this. Chris and Joyce are on a fire. They are so good at this. Oh, man. But now we should rank our best pictures winner of the 80s, Joyce. I don't think you've given this a lick of thought, but I went through and did it. It took me about 30 seconds. So,
Yeah, I have not given this
okay.
any thought.
Should I give you mine?
Sure.
Okay. Number 10, Out of Africa. Just a terrible movie. Number 9, Driving Miss Daisy. Not great. Number 8, Gandhi. Sorry to David L., who told me it's one of his favorite movies in the comments 3 months ago. As you're watching this. Number 7, The Last Emperor. Number 6, Chariots of Fire. Number 5, Amadeus. Number 4, Ordinary People. Number 3, Rain Man. Number 2, Platoon. And number 1, Terms of Endearment.
I don't know what to do in the bottom half here because I don't care.
Sure. So then they're all, let's say it's a 6-way, a 5-way tie for 6th. Because I feel like I know what your number 1 will be.
I mean, if you know me at all, you would know what my number 1 is. I guess I would do Out of Africa in 10 or Driving Miss Daisy. I don't know. I feel like
put,
I think like Driving Miss Daisy is more watchable.
that was why I put it in 9th, and Out of Africa. Out of Africa is like fucking impossible to watch. This is like pulling my hair out. There's none left. That's why I was watching Out of Africa.
And then 8, I guess I'll do Gandhi for
Sorry,
8.
David L.
I mean, I respect the movie.
Yeah, they're not bad. I just like, to me, like Last Emperor I put above Gandhi because I just thought it was like a little tweak on the epic thing.
Yeah, I'll probably have Last Emperor in 7th. And then I don't know about these either. Oh god. I mean, all of the ones that are left I've seen more than once. And then maybe Platoon? I don't know. Platoon or Rayman. And then I would do Chariots of Fire.
Right.
And then Terms, Amadeus, and Ordinary People.
Nice. I knew that. I figured that was gonna. I knew I'd be higher on Platoon and Rain Man than you. Those are just middle brow
They're
bullshit
such
movies.
Chris movies.
Yeah, like absolutely in on these. I was
Like Ordinary People
really-
is truly the only Best Picture winner here that I love of this decade.
And honestly, the only one I love is I don't even know. I guess in terms of endearment, I do think is fantastic. So that's it, Joyce. That's Oscars Playback. That was season 3. We did it.
I know.
I
But
think
like once again, like I said, the first half of this decade, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can listen to the 90s. We already did that. You can listen to 2000s. We already did that. I think we should come back next year, Joyce, and do the 70s. What do you think?
The 70s.
Yeah.
That's gonna have even fewer attendees there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it'll be good. A lot of good movies in the 70s, Joyce.
We have a Godfather, a lot of Godfather.
This is why I'm like in. I'm like, man, you know I fucking love The Godfather? Chinatown? I got it right here on.
We have like so much Jack and Al. How many times are you gonna mention The Offer?
So much. Oh man.
We just lost Al Ruddy.
I know. R.I.P. Al.
And then we have Annie Hall.
Annie Hall and Star Wars. This is like maybe the best decade. Yeah, we got to come back to do the 70s, Joyce.
Cuckoo's Nest.
We got to get renewed.
Who's gonna renew
what
us?
I'm gonna do. I'm gonna write a list of movies that I'm gonna rewatch, and starting right now,
you're gonna spend the next year.
I'm gonna spend the next year rewatching movies from the 70s. So I'm ready and able to do the 70s Oscars Playback. This is great, I guess. So we'll be back next year for that. But you can keep watching us as we talk about other stuff too.
And that would actually be a full 10 because we haven't done any from the 70s yet.
Wow. That'd be great. We'll really have to work on our pre-record schedule then to make it fit in with all our Emmys interviews.
We have to do Patton. Oh my gosh, French Connection.
Kramer versus Kramer.
We have the first Dustin and Meryl there.
Alien. Great movie.
The Deer Hunter. We have Deer Hunter and Coming Home.
And Jaws.
Oh man.
Close Encounters.
So
the list goes on and on. Hollywood should have quit while it was ahead.
And also just a completely different obviously era, but just like the winners themselves. So different from the 80s.
Yeah. I'm excited to look at it because I think that'll be a lot of fun. So we'll be back next year with that. And I guess we'll see it that we follow the Hollywood stars, Joyce, to the end of the 80s / this decade, sort of. But watch the 90 Oscars next on YouTube. All right. See you, Joyce. Bye.